I would like to introduce to everyone Babe K. Sobriety dates March 2nd, 2002, from Coral Room in Miami. He is from Olean, New York. Babe, giving you the mic. I'll see you on the other side.
Well, thank you, Christine. I'm Babe. I am an alcoholic. Yeah, I've been traveling this road for 22 years. I have not relapsed. Uh, I have no I love the way this meeting got started. You were practicing the ninth tradition. AA as such ought never be organized. Right from the get-go. My flyers, I got a whole new pronoun. I love that. And I love the flyer itself. Traditions 8 and 9 are my two personal favorites: unprofessional and disorganized. Check. Here we go. But I just yesterday I did a talk on step 9. The day before I talked about my old standby read this book. I like having a kind of a theme because it's been the same damn story over and over and over. But I like to just think a little bit about a different direction, a little slant on my story. And your flyer blew me away. I absolutely love that flyer. There are no limits in sobriety. And the name of this meeting, new spiritual family. So that's where I'm going to try to go. We never know. And I'm going to start with a prayer. Many of you know Thomas Merton. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I don't see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it'll end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope that I have that desire in all that I'm doing. That's where we're going today. I don't know where we're going to start. I don't know where we're going to end up. I don't have any friggin' clue. I'm doing a 20-week book study, and I don't even do preparations to do a book study. I just kind of wing it. I've been reading this book, studying this book, taking people through that. I love the person. Hey, you're working with Ricky. I don't know. I haven't, I don't know who that is. I guess that answered that question. Will you be my sponsor? Who are you? I don't know if I ever saw you before. But that's how this whole thing goes. And there are no limits. How I got here. Drank alcoholically 35 years, puking in the parking lot, fighting all over the place, riding home in the cop cars, just blacking out all the time, and never once even hinting that I want to quit drinking, much less that I ought to. I drank because that's how I grew up. My uncle drank every day, and he was a master carpenter, postmaster, and so you could drink every day as long as you did. And I was a literal Jekyll and Hyde. My wife would say, "You're such a Jekyll and Hyde." On the surface, I kept getting promoted. The only day I missed in a 35-year career was the day I was sitting in jail after a DWI because the stupid judge didn't get up in time to arraign me to get me to work on time. That's the only time I missed a day from drinking. But I drank every single night. Kate and the kids would go to bed. Out would come the bottle, no carpet slippers, and a novel, and I would get lost in full flight from reality, get lost in a novel. Drink till I got a little tired, and when I started drooling on the book, I put my head down on the kitchen table. I woke up, took a shower, went to work. And like I said, they kept promoting me. You're the best boss. We had the best team. We kept getting awards. We were kicking ass. And then the weekends were for drinking. And that's when I would go wheels off. And how I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, the one thing that I would have sworn on my kids' life, my life, on anything, that I would never, ever physically hurt my wife. I mean, the woman put up with me. We ended up having a 46-year marriage. She had to escape by getting cancer and dying. We'll probably get around to killing off Kate by the end of this talk. But nonetheless, I would not. I knew in my guts I will never ever hurt my wife. Till March 2nd, 2002, she came home from work, big bandage on her arm, and I said, "What happened to you?" And I can still see the look on her face when she said, "You don't even know, do you?" I said, "No, why?" She said, "That's where you bit me." I was crushed. The whole house of cards came falling down. I mean, I was broken. Who cares to admit complete defeat? And I have no idea how I picked up the telephone. That's when they were still stuck to the wall with wires. And I called this Alcoholics Anonymous helpline. No idea who and what this AA thing was. I probably heard about it after my DWI at drunk school. They probably brought in a couple of Elkies, but that was 20 years. I drank 20 years after I tried my one controlled attempt at controlled drinking. Learned that at drunk school. Drink an hour and you won't get arrested. You'll be legal. And I tried that at one of my wife's family reunions. I got a watch and a 6-pack, went to the family reunion, top of the hour. I cracked a beer, drank it. Then I had to wait 59 minutes and 50 seconds till the next one. I did it, by God, 1 beer an hour. Dinosaurs came and went. I had the worst headache in the world. And I said, I'm never going to do that again. So I quit driving. I didn't quit drinking. I'd never thought of quitting drinking. So I pick up the phone and I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, and you know, people say, oh, you loved me till you could love me back, or I could love myself, and I found the fellowship I crave. It's in the book, and I have found it. This is this new spiritual family. I hope to get to that one too, that part of your flyer, because what a joy this is. But so but I get to that first meeting and they say, you know, see that guy there they passed around a list of phone numbers. And I thought, oh, gee, that's nice. Guy next to me yanked it out of my hand, said, that's for me. I said, okay. And they said, see that guy there? That's George. He's the sponsor. And see those guys sitting along the wall? They're sponsees. We call them pigeons. And their job is to turn their hat around frontwards, pull their pants up, paint his house, and mow his lawn. I'm thinking, well, I ain't wearing a hat. My pants are already pulled up, and I got my own house to paint, my own lawn to mow. I guess I don't need one of these sponsor things. And then they opened the meeting for sharing, and I became great friends with all the ones that stayed sober in that. I mean, we are dear friends. George, the sponsor, has gone to the big meeting in the sky, but nonetheless, they opened the meeting up for sharing, and I guess they were trying to help me identify. But I was done. I would have sworn I know I'll never laugh again. And I probably will never even smile. And so they open the meeting up for shares, and it's these guys. I wake up every day with untreated alcoholism, and my alcoholism is doing push-ups all day long. I gotta battle this. You know, the AAERs just hanging in there one miserable day at a time. If you want what I have. I'm thinking, Jesus, buddy, I already got that. You know, I was done for. I was broken. I was beat. No words can express the loneliness and despair, the bitter morass of self-pity. They ought to put that in the book. They did. Page 8 changed my life. I know we're going to get to page 8. And so they never even gave me a meeting schedule. So all AA worldwide, you people didn't exist. AA didn't exist. Alcoholics Anonymous was at 8 p.m. on Monday nights in Olean, New York. I don't know what all of you all were doing. And they never gave me a meeting schedule. And they said, you know, and at the end, my very first AA angel, my friend Stacy, blonde-haired Native American girl, came up and said, hi, my name's Stacy, what's yours? And I'm looking down, of course. I said, my name's Jerry, but my friends call me Babe. I've been Babe since 8 years old. And it's a term of endearment. Like I said, everybody knew me as Babe, and I didn't even feel like I deserved to have my own nickname. That's how low I was. And she says, well, I'm calling you Babe anyway. And she and I have been trudging this. I have not relapsed. She did have a slip, but she just sent me a text that she got 20 years last Sunday. She saved my butt. I'm sitting there not drinking. I got to Alcoholics Anonymous done deep down in my guts. I know I'm done drinking, but I don't know how I'm going to stay that way. And so I go through the next week feeling worse. Not physically, but emotionally and mentally, you know, that I hurt the love of my life, and I will never get over that. So next Monday night, I figured, well, maybe this Stacy chick will be there and I'll go to the meeting. And it was more of the same hopelessness. But here's Stacy with a great big Native American guy, and he whacks me on the arm. He's hitting me with a big book. He, he says, "You want to get sober? Read this." And so that was my second meeting, my second week, well, my first whole week of sobriety. Between week 2 and week 3, I read the book Alcoholics Anonymous 3 times. None of the stories, that looked like virgin territory. But I just could not believe that the way that book talked to me. I'm reading the doctor's opinion. The physical allergy, the phenomenon of craving was so strong in me, it felt like a button being pushed on my forehead. It could be 1 drink, it could be 3 drinks. I don't think it was ever any more than 3. You heard I tried the 1 and the dinosaurs came and went. It was so strong in me that Kate, my wife, would say, "Oh, babe's head swiveling, here we go." And she knew that she better take the car and leave and I can find my own way home. That's how strong that I had the allergy, and I didn't know it. And I'm reading the doctor's opinion that this only occurs in alcoholics, never in average temperate drinkers. And I'm thinking, well, cool. And that's why Kate couldn't understand I drank that way, and I couldn't understand why she couldn't understand. She could never feel the phenomenon of craving, and I can't even imagine what it feel like to not experience the phenomenon of craving. And it says we don't know the true from the false. We're in full flight from reality. So I was absolutely overjoyed to find out what's wrong with me. I am an alcoholic. Let's rock. So just don't drink and life will be spiffy. Why do we need this whole book? I will never experience the phenomenon of craving if I don't pick up the first drink. Why don't I? So then I'm get reading along in Bill's story. And Bill wanted to prove to the world that he was something. He was the number 1 man. He was going to be the big shot. He took up golf to catch up with Walter Hagen. He says he took up golf so Lois could be saying, "Oh, look, that's my boy Billy. Look at that coat of tan on him. Ain't he wonderful?" Bill wanted the applause. Bill wanted the accolades. He wanted the money, property, prestige, and romance. Read the first 7 pages of his story. He had thought so highly of himself. And it says, I was going to prove to the world that I was something. People committing suicide when the stock market crashed. Bill's old desire to win came back. He isn't going to jump off a building. He's going to the bar and then get back in the game. Bill was always going to win. He liked whirling those fat checks in front of the skeptical banker. And he liked talking in millions and spending in thousands. Bill wanted the money, property, prestige, and romance. And Rita's laid his thing, that emotional frontier. Bill still battled that his whole life, wanting to be number 1 man. Read page 6, and it sounds like the most horrible bottom that any of us ever get bored through in a meeting. The terror, he doesn't even dare cross the street. And I had no idea who this Bill guy is. In the doctor's opinion, they don't tell us if Fitzmayo and Hank Parkhurst, they get these wonderful recoveries. Then this Bill guy comes on, and I'm thinking he must be the poster child of what it looks like to die an alcoholic death. I don't know what the hell Bill's doing in this book. I didn't know he wrote the book. and on page 6, what does he say? You'd think he's finally going to either die or get it. Then he says the human body is amazing. He went on for 2 more years. And the way we drank was absolutely the same, but our motives were totally different till the bottom of page 7, when Bill overheard them talking and that he was going to follow the endless procession of slots. What Bill found out at the bottom of page 7, he was just a garden variety drunk. And that's what I always knew I was. And that's what and so now Bill and I are exactly the same, on the same level. I would thought so highly of myself. Bill was crushed. And then he thought of his poor wife. Remember, I got here because of my poor wife. And that was over now, what I wouldn't give to make amends. And we talk in a lot of metaphors. If you understand this, you don't need to hear it, only it's nice to have it put in words. And if you've never experienced it, these words won't really, you'll understand the words, but you won't know the feeling. What he says, no words can express the loneliness and despair, the bitter morass of self-pity, quicksand spread around. Alcohol was my master. I couldn't talk from the podium for a couple of years about those two paragraphs without openly weeping. That is so much my story. And then Bill, you know, the Armistice Day story is really fun and cute. The moral of that one is if you're going to borrow your brother-in-law's golf clubs, make sure you come back no matter how drunk you are. Bill, check that one off. But there are better morals. But in that paragraph, what brought me hope, how dark it is before the dawn. Remember, I'm still sitting there in that bitter morass of self-pity, indescribably broken. That's what that paragraph says. And I'm there, and then this Bill Wilson guy says how dark it is before the dawn. Little glimmer of hope. And then at the bottom that he was soon to be catapulted in this fourth dimension, a life of peace and usefulness that gets more wonderful as time passes. Sounds like your flyer. Limitless possibilities. Life gets more wonderful as time passes. And I'm here to tell you that's where I hope to go. That this life is so wonderful beyond my wildest dreams, no matter what. I saw the NMW, and I love that in the book. What the hell page is it? I'll never find. Ha! There it is. When we put ourselves in God's, the things that came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. Follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. That's my no matter what club. Walking hand in hand with you in the spirit of the universe, and I can get through anything, and I will be happy, joyful, and free, no matter what. Has nothing to do with friggin' drinking. We get here, we quit drinking. Now we get to rock on with God. If you get to step 2 anyway, or 3. And yeah, this was so disorganized. You know, Christy asked me what prayer I want to end with. I said 4-step. I don't even know the difference between step 4 and step 3. You got a lunatic for a speaker today. I had no idea what's going to happen. That's why I read the Merton prayer. So I'm doing this, I'm reading this, and I'm reading page 25, and, you know, and I'd gone to the meeting. Eventually I found a group that was based on Joe and Charlie. We listened to the Joe and Charlie tapes for about 20 minutes, after which we discussed what we have heard. So Joe and Charlie were my sponsors for the first 10 years of my recovery. But and then finally somebody gave me a schedule, and I found out there was more than one meeting a week. What a revelation. So I'm going to these meetings, and they're all reading this, how it works. And they say, if you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. The we is not those knuckleheads sitting next to you in the room. It might be, but the we are the people with 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, and wrote this book to tell precisely how that happens. And they hope these pages will prove so convincing. Oops, that's one of my other themes. Read this book. But they're the people. What do they have? I suggest you read page 25. Pretty straightforward. It says, we have had deep, effective spiritual experiences that have revolutionized our whole attitude toward God, toward the universe, toward all the kids on the playground. They found much of heaven. They've been rocketed in the 4th dimension of existence. Geez, Bill was just telling me I could be catapulted. Now I'm going to be rocketed. And then where I may get to, we may not, but the most powerful line in what they have is the absolute certainty. Think about that. The absolute certainty that our Creator's entered our heart and lives in a way that's indeed miraculous. That's the endless possibilities that your flyer talks about. To get to a point where there's an absolute certainty that my Creator's entered my heart and lives in a way that's indeed miraculous. Every single day I wake up and say, good morning, God, here I am, surprise me. It's from a Richard Rohr thing. Love wholeheartedly. I've done a whole lead on that too. Do you dare to love wholeheartedly? That God is love. God is the face of love. Every one of your faces is God, and I love every one of you. I may tell you how I got to that particular little point in my life. but the absolute certainty that my Creator has entered my heart and lives in a way that's indeed miraculous. And then I get on to, well, page 21, that I was the Jekyll and Hyde, and I was, you heard I was always getting promoted. I really a decent guy until I got drunk, and I loved the almost blackouts because there were no rules. And I just heard a young lady say that just as she was blacking out, she felt like that was the real her. And oh my God, that was me. I was beginning to enjoy the blackouts better than reality. And that probably would have killed me. So, I'm doing, so page 21, I am that guy, dangerously antisocial. Chalk it up to the game. I'm not going to quit drinking. Just that's get over it, dear. So that I'm reading, the We Agnostics. I having never relapsed, I didn't really get a hell of a lot out of chapter 3, because that's the losers chapter. The guys that kept relapsing. But now, as the years have gone, and the whole point of chapter 3 is that at certain times, Babe will have no effective mental defense against the first drink. Play the tape through, play the movie to the end, works till it doesn't. And I believe that. Fred's story, the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon, and boom, there goes Fred. So these warnings are actually more powerful to me now after all these years than they were when I first read them. Then we get to We Agnostics, and I tried religions. I really, I mean, I sponsored a devil worshiper, a schizophrenic devil worshiper, power greater than him. Great guy. He sucked as a devil worshiper. He was a pretty good human being. I at least nudged him toward Gaia. When I went in to listen to his third step, I walk in, all the lights are out. There's a skull with a candle in it and a thing that bigger than a dagger and smaller than a sword. And I'm thinking, this might be the most interesting third step I've ever done. The poor guy's schizophrenia killed him. He died sober. But nonetheless, so, and my favorite promise in all of We Agnostics, and it's one you never hear, and I think it's probably for a new person, it may be the best promise in the book. Sweep away prejudice, think honestly, search diligently in your own heart, and the consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. What a promise. And then they throw the cherry on top and tell you, with this attitude, you cannot fail. Boom. Am I willing to try to do this? They say I can't fail. I'll do this shit just to prove that they're wrong. and so I did. And the idea, who hasn't stood in awe of the sunset? Who hasn't done this? And I loved Christianity for a while, and you will think I'm a very good Christian. I just a beautiful 11-step talk today by my friend Brother Kevin, Franciscan, and Father Dan Riley. He wrote the book The Franciscan Lectio. He just passed away like a month or so ago, and I went to his book signing, and I was going to pick on him. Yeah, sure, you Franciscans a vow of poverty and you're charging $30 for a book. Instead, I hadn't seen the guy in about 15 years. He looked up, and I'm thinking, oh boy, Father Dan got old. And I'm thinking, well, he probably, geez, Babe got old. Well, he looked up at me, and this was the most humbling thing I've heard in a long time, maybe forever. But he looked up at me with these Irish Franciscan eyes, and he says, Babe, God's light is shining in you. And oh my God. Oh, thanks, Dan. It sounds like ego, but it was the most humbling thing anybody could say. That we get to be the light of God. What does it say in the prayer of St. Francis? Bring light. And to have a underpaid professional tell me that he could see God's light in me blew me away. Limitless possibilities in this thing. So we're doing this, and that's why I wanted to end with the third step prayer that I call the fourth step prayer. I only been doing it for 22 years every single day. I just didn't know the name of it with the numbers to it, because oddly enough, the numbers on the steps fall away and turn into one big program, one big step. So I have said that prayer every single day. Of course, through the years, I've added the 7-step prayer because you got to get to the friggin' amen sooner or later. And step 7, I like doing a whole talk on step 7, where that is actually a real relationship with God. That's in step 6, aiming toward the perfection which is of God. But nonetheless, I would wake up, started for years, I just did 3rd step prayer, then 3rd and 7th step prayer, then the Richard Rohr thing. And why do I say, morning God, here I am, surprise me? That's my little set aside prayer. That's me coming every single morning to God, saying, I don't know anything, God, here I am with empty hands. Surprise me, show me the miracles. And if I'm awake to them, my day is full of miracle after miracle after miracle. You can't believe that, you can't make this stuff up. This is endless possibilities. That's what your flyer says. And that's how I absolutely live my life. But what about the pain and the tragedy? My maple tree doesn't worry that the ginkgo tree next door is losing its leaves. My maple tree doesn't really know if it's going to be a hard winter or care. We are humans. We have been given the ability to step outside of our life and look at a bigger picture. It's our blessing and our curse. Richard Rohr says the fact that we can step out of our lives and look down on it, to know that we know, to watch the watcher. And in chapter, and we agnostics, it says these spiritual people can rise above their problems. And that's what Rohr calls our God consciousness. There's ability to rise above our mundane lives. But my maple tree will never know joy. My maple tree will never be as happy as that little guy right there. I'm not the shortest person in the room now. And a boy, buddy, make me feel tall. That's my goal in life, is to make every 10-year-old in the world feel tall. In the store, look, mommy, he's little. I used to be 5'1", I'm down to 5'10", I'm going the wrong way. What a joy this is. So, but the heartbreak, the fact that we have heartbreak allows us to see the joy. My maple tree will never be happy that its leaves are beautiful. It will never either be envious or praising the ginkgo tree next to it. It's just, Merton calls the little yellow flower on the side of the road that nobody notices, and it is in its own way singing its praise to God. And like I said, I don't think I'm Christian, but I get up singing that doxology. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Praise him, all creatures here below. Praise him above ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. And then I sing a couple hallelujahs. And I'm like Bill, to Christ I concede a great man, but I'm not too crazy about his fan club. David Standel Rast, he's a Benedictine, 97 years old. As we get older and older and older, this shit doesn't really matter quite so much. But Rast said, and he actually may have been the one that said, love wholeheartedly, be surprised, give thanks and praise. And I just let Richard Rohr steal it. But nonetheless, what Rast says is that every religion starts as like a volcano caldera, full of boiling, bubbling, swirling, boiling hot lava, and it's just on fire with spirituality, to the point that it overflows and goes down the side of the volcano. And by the time it gets to the bottom, it's just cold, dead rock of dogma. I want to be in the volcano. I want to mix it up in the lava. I don't particularly care if you say Wakantanka Tunkashila Yeoyate Wani Wachincha. Allahu Akbar. I call them whatever you call them, the friggin' Great Pumpkin. They believe the Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown and the kids were out there waiting for the Great Pumpkin just yesterday. It really doesn't matter. It says, that we grow in the image and likeness of our Creator. And I suggest so much of religion is us trying to create God in our image, because we can't comprehend God. The book says God is everything or God is nothing, and I tell you I understand everything. I'm trying to tell you I understand everything. You might think I think so, but I'm not that delusional. I like the great, indescribable, immutable, unknowable Tao, the all, the everything. And when I quit trying to figure out God, I got to know God. Put God in a box, and what you got is a box of God parts. Let God out of the friggin' box. Tear down the walls around your heart. Let the people in. And boom, you are rocketed in this fourth dimension of existence. You will have a new spiritual family. Ha, you ought to put that on your flyer. Ha ha, you did. That's why I love this flyer. So we're going through this life, and the woman that I bit and got me to this Alcoholics Anonymous gig. Uh, I don't know, I don't do well with clocks and calendars. It was a couple of years, maybe a year before the pandemic that she died. But anyway, she thought she had bronchitis, and turns out that she had a big mass on her lung, mass on her liver, in her adenoids, spots on her brain. And for 15 months, I sat next to her. She died right here where I sat. And one night, the only night she spent away from me was after the cancer had got into her spine, and I couldn't even pick her up and put her on the porta potty without causing her agony. So she went in the hospital and got kyphoplasty, which is, I think they just shoot some epoxy in your spine. So you got a little buffer. But every single day worked out good. God woke up first, Babe woke up, and I did my prayer and meditation. And how am I doing for time? I may or may not tell you when I learned how to pray properly. Another time she was in intensive care, but we'll kill her off first and then go back. So every single day, morning, God, here I am, surprise me. And then Katie'd wake up and morning, sunshine, got a smile for me. One day in those 15 months. And it wasn't the day she died. We laughed the day she died. But she said, babe, I don't feel like smiling today. And it was pretty early in the game. It's when all her hair fell out. And I said, what do you mean you don't want to smile? We get to play barber today, honey. And so it took her 15 minutes till she laughed. Our wheelchair didn't have footrest on it. So here she is slumped down with her do-rag on, just a rag doll in this wheelchair. And we'd be going out of the chemo place and, okay, kid, wheels up, beauty queen. And so she'd stick her little feet out in front of her and she'd be going through the doctor's waiting room. Poster child for joy in cancer, terminal cancer. At 14 months, the radiation doctor came out crying. Babe, Katie, it kills me to tell people like you, but there's nothing we can do. I had that figured out by 14 months. We aren't getting better. We're not on the back nine. We're on just off the 18th green, you know. But but what really moved me, other than the fact that he was so sad because he loved us too. But he said, babe, if you'd have asked me 14 months ago how long Katie had, I would have told you no more than 2 or 3 months. Thank God I didn't ask for a prognosis. And that's where I learned to pray the other time she was in intensive care. Her surgery was going bad. She was in intensive care. And I woke up in the morning, did my prayer and meditation. I called my sponsor, then went and sat in the intensive care unit, and I'm praying, because it says we can pray for other people. God, our life is so beautiful now. We're so happy. Please let her live. And God went out and friggin' created universes or something, or took up golf. I don't know what God was doing, but he wasn't talking to me. And I sat there for the 8 hours in the intensive care unit. Then I went home. Next day, same thing. Got up and prayed and meditated, went and sat with her, and I prayed, God, she's been on this ventilator for 4 days now. If she's going to be a vegetable, please take her home with you. Once again, no God. Where are you, big boy? Slow day, huh, God? Or busy day, can't be bothered with a poor old Kate. I like to say on the third day, babe rose again. And I found this beautiful little prayer. Simple. God's love enfolds me. His light surrounds me. His power protects me. Wherever I am, God is. And I said that like a little mantra, and I physically felt the presence of God. God's got to hit me with a brick. I'm pretty dense. God was saying, babe, I'm not a suggestion box, and I really don't need your good ideas to tell me what to do. All you have to know, babe, is that my love sort of enfolds you. I love the idea of being enfolded by love. What an image that is. And to be surrounded by God's light and to know that wherever I am, God is. And that's all I pray for now. What does it say? Knowledge of God's will and the power to carry that out. Show me what you want. I honestly think the bottom line of all of God's will, and this was last week's big meditation that blew me away, was that that just love my kids, love your brothers and sisters. If I use that to guide my whole life, I can never go wrong. Sounds like a brand new spiritual family, doesn't it? You ought to put that on your flyer. Isn't it amazing? And Christie's Spirit of the Universe, too. I like the SOTU kids. What's the spirit? The vital animating force, the push behind everything. The Great Spirit, Wakantanka, call it what you want. There is a force. I got Yoda sitting over here. That was a gift from some of my sponsees. I was doing a lead, and they're all, oh, babe, such a Yoda, babe, such a Yoda. At the end, they're saying, babe, such a Nazi, big book thumper. but they bought me a Yoda. At least they didn't buy me a Nazi helmet. But this spirit, this vital animating force, this push, this oomph, this what gets babe going, what makes the muskrat guard its musk. The Cowardly Lion says courage. I say it's the spirit of the universe. What gets me up every single day? The love of God. And tell me when I got to shut up, Christy, because I'll keep talking till next Tuesday. No, actually, I got to speak somewhere else tomorrow. I have to quit before then. And, tomorrow's going to be fun, too. They said, babe, pick 2 steps to talk about. So everybody's going to pick 3 and 4, or 4 and 5, or 6 and 7, or 8 and 9. I picked 5 and 10. Look at the 5th step promises and the 10th step promises. I'm going to have a ball talking about that one, but that's tomorrow. And I can't change it because they made the flyers, so I got to stick to that one. But so this whole recovery thing. So then, I got through this and the world shut down. I was even going to Detroit for the convention. And God put a panic on a plague on the world just to keep babe out of Detroit. I am that important, don't you know? And what am I going to do? I was aching with loneliness just before the pandemic. And I went to the meeting I went to this morning, same one they were doing. It's a 12 and 12 meeting. They were doing step 12 and the 12 and 12. And I was sitting there and they're talking about the new guy getting it. And it says, this new guy feels like he's on the verge of new joys, new mysteries, new adventures. Yeah, thanks, God. That's it. Get back in the game, because I sat out for 15 months because I had to sit here with Katie girl. And so I did. I picked up a new sponsee and started getting back into meetings. Then the world shut down, and I even lost track of the poor girl that I sponsored. And I tell people, I don't sponsor men, I don't sponsor women, I don't sponsor black people, white people, gay people, straight people. I sponsor alcoholics. I don't really care what color your skin is or what body parts you have. You an alcoholic, you want help, here I go. I've sponsored 20 women. I told you I sponsored the schizophrenic devil worshiper. And he had a hell of a time finding a sponsor, you can imagine. And what a beautiful soul he was. So then I find sponsee told me about this Zoom thing. And I get on it and hooked up with a bunch of guys in Nebraska. And I was 18 years sober at that time. And they thought that, oh, babe, we love your enthusiasm. I like being the new guy in the room, with 18 years. And then I stumbled, somebody said, hey, Russell Spatz is speaking, and gave me some Zoom numbers, 10:30 at night. And I love listening to Russell because he talks about rocket ships. And I log on, and it's the Choral Room in Miami. And I don't know if she got here. She was taking a piano lesson. If she's here, doesn't really matter. But anyway, this young woman was just so enthusiastic, so wound up, running this meeting, having a ball, as enthusiastic as me. And she says, and so I haven't missed, I don't think I've missed a day in over 4 years. But she said, "Babe, will you sponsor me?" I mean, she loves laughing at me. She says, "Can you speak at this meeting?" I said, "Sure." And she says, "I'll send you a text." I said, "I don't know how. Number I gave you is a landline." You have a landline? People still have landlines? She loves laughing at me that I write checks. but we kind of clicked right at the beginning, and she asked me to sponsor her, and I said no, not because she's a woman. I've sponsored 20 women, because I would not sponsor anybody long distance. If we're going to be doing this deal, we're going to be sitting down at a table with this book between us, smelling each other's bad breath and farts, and drinking crummy coffee together. I think there's something to that spiritually. So I said no, and it broke her heart. And I said, "Let me pray on it." And God says, "You ain't going to wreck this kid." So she's got 6 years now. We've done step studies together. We've done sponsee interviews together. We did a sponsee one in Akron and got to meet Jerry. And he says, "If you guys are ever in Akron, one of my other sponsees arranged our own little private Founders Day. Just a bunch of us Zoom kids went." And we got a hold of Jerry. He had the keys to the Akron archives. So we got our own little tour. We got to go to the Swenson's and get a galley burger and then go have a picnic in Dr. Bob's backyard. And it was, of course, during COVID, and you could only go through the tours 4 at a time. And when we get into the upstairs, and there was an emotional moment where Mo started crying, and I'm like this. And then I realized what she was so emotional about. Then they took us into the bedroom, and of course it was it was roped off, but the guy saw me and Monica crying, and he said, "Do you two want to kneel down at the?" Now I'm going to cry. "Do you want to kneel down at the bed and say the prayer?" And so on one side of me is Monica, and the other side of me is my sponsee Frank, who organized the trip. And the Weasley little sponsee said, "Babe, why don't you say the third step prayer?" Good thing I knew it was the third step prayer that day, huh, Christy? But I said it. But what's so amazing is that my arthritis was so bad, I didn't think I'd stand up. Those two beautiful kids, each one took an arm without saying anything. "Babe, let us help you stand up." Isn't that what we do? After Monica's fifth step, she's got this thing where me and you wrapped in a God blanket, rip off all the masks. We know this for now. I'm getting into steps 5 and 10. we rip off the masks and we bare our soul in front of God and another human being. And the freedom is that in this life, there's one human being that I never have to keep a secret from, that I can tell anything to, that is always going to have my back and is never going to judge me. The worse that we hear, the more we love these people. But when we're on the given side of it, you think, "Oh, do I dare do this? Do I dare to love wholeheartedly?" Back to that little lead. And that's where we begin to find love. And the rest of the steps tear down the walls even more. The God blankets get bigger and bigger and bigger. Everybody becomes part of Monica's God blanket. You guys are now part of my God blanket that's part of Monica. So every one of you is now part of Monica's God blanket. And so this long distance sponsoring, I just took on a new guy. We're just getting started. But I sent my girl Chandler. She was in Colorado. Now she's in Boston. I met her once. A bunch of us flew to Colorado Springs for one of Monica's sponsees' wedding. The whole bridal party, the girls' side. I'm just one of the girls. That's why I was laughing when listening to Babe share her experience, strength, and hope, because I'm just one of the girls. But we all went to Colorado for this wedding, and I don't know where I'm going with that. Lost track. That's gone. The sponsorship things. And so anyway, I got to meet Chandler. She was at the time, now she's some financial, frightening kind of career to me, but she was teaching recovery yoga at the time. But anyway, she just got 4 years last Sunday. And then I was talking to my sponsee, Patrick. He's a school teacher in Connecticut. Never met Patrick in person. And I'm telling Patrick, yeah, Chan just got her 4 years and you got your 3. He says, babe, I got 4 too. And I got a girl with 2 years. I've got these sponsees that who thought you could not sponsor virtually. I'm sending out coins to these people. God's going to work. Put on the Zoom, turn my own camera off, and their faces as big as if we're sitting there, and I don't have to smell their bad breath and their farts. But the experience is just as real. And so that is, open it up, grow and grow in understanding and effectiveness, grow in understand. The 11th step and the 12th step is why this is limitless. And you can never, this is Monica. She says, every time I think it can't get any better, boom, it gets better. Yeah, my heart is broken, but in God's world it's perfect. And I'll shut up because you're going to tell me to anyway. When the dark time of Kate's passing, when she was so sick, because I never quit my meditation, but God took me into his world, rise above our problems thing back in we agnostics. God took me into his world and put in my heart, babe, in my world, somebody saying, this is the best day of my life. I fell in love. We're having a baby. And from that moment to this day, I realize I do not have bad days. How many people do you hear say, I'm just having a bad day? Well, get over it, Eeyore. What I have is selfish days. And we have a program. We must be rid of the selfishness or it kills us. Yeah, my wife died. It's terribly sad. But we had 46 years of beautiful, loving relationship that grew more loving through her pain and death. She would, even when we were fighting, she'd answer the phone, hi, my love. And I'd think, oh, good, the storm clouds had passed. Then she'd hang up and storm clouds came back. But just last year, I swear I woke up hearing her saying, morning, my love. And so I'm crying, and I learned from Monica to sing to God. So I got snot slinging, and I figured I'll ride over to the res and buy some tobacco. So I'm going down the highway singing Irish songs, snot slinging, tears, and I think, oh my God, if I get pulled over, what are they gonna think? Well, I just heard my dead wife say, morning, my love. I'd probably get a little trip to the cop shop again, but I know how to work those cop shops. So anyway, this is endless. It's limitless. No matter how good I think it gets, no matter how, I don't think it's bad. No matter how selfish I get, there is always light. How dark it is before the dawn, and it is limitless possibility with this new spiritual family. I see the face of God in every single one of you. And so thanks for putting up with me. I dressed as Eeyore for the Halloween party.